안녕하십니까? It is a great honor for me to share with you today the remarkable transformation of our country, Rwanda, which went from a kingdom to the tragedy of colonialism, and then leading to one of the biggest or the worst tragedy of the 20th century, the genocide against the Tutsis in 1994, and then became one of the beacon of unity, prosperity, and innovation on the continent. So a little bit of history. Rwanda is an ancient kingdom. It came from an ancient kingdom. It was a nation much bigger than the geographical space that the Republic of Rwanda today occupies. So you have Rwandans from the Kingdom of Rwanda that are in the neighboring countries, some in Uganda, some in DRC, some in Tanzania, etc. When it became a republic, it was cut into a much smaller piece due to the colonial history, which I will share also in a few minutes. So to understand the situation of Rwanda today, you have to go back to the history. Rwanda is a kingdom that had lasted about 1,000 years before, and the king did not have a universal power rule. He was ruling with a council of advisors, which were all covering different subjects. And the king was called Umwami in Kinyarwanda, and the royal council was called Abiru. Abiru were like ministers, they were advisors, they were the ones that were sharing the power decisions with the king. The queen mother, the mother of the king, had also a very important role in the decision making in the kingdom. It's very important to note that because it led to some of the policies that you have in Rwanda today, where gender equality is very important. Rwanda is one of the most advanced policies in terms of gender equality. And this comes from this ruling mechanism that came from the kingdom time, where the king had, as part of the advisors, his mother. And of course, the kingdom was divided into provinces. Each province was led by a provincial lead, which were called abatware. Abatware were like governors today. They were leading the province, of course, based on the rules that were established around the kingdom. And then we had a judicial system, which will also, you will see how it comes back in the modern history of Rwanda, called gacaca. Gacaca were local courts that were chaired by a jury, and the jury was made by elders that were known they were known for integrity. Those were the ones who were helping to provide justice at the local level, and when justice was not satisfactory to any of the parties, it would be elevated to the provincial level, and if still you are not happy with the decision of the jury, you can still go to the royal level court, which and they were all called gacaca. So why is this important? The Kingdom of Rwanda had an insistence on a common language to build a nation across the entire kingdom. So when you talk about Rwandans, when we talk about the nation of Rwanda, we all speak one language. Of course, as in all nations, there's a little bit of accent variation, but it's only one language. Secondly, there was one culture. There was one culture, tradition, practices. You could go anywhere, you will know how to greet, what the do's and don'ts, etc. There was a common identity. So a Rwandan was a Rwandan everywhere and recognized in the region with the same tradition, the same clothing, the same behavior, etc. And the administration was quite sophisticated with rules that were not written. Unfortunately, we didn't have a written alphabet, but all the rules were known to everyone, and there was training to all the youth. From their teenagehood, they would be trained to understand these laws and behaviors, what is admissible and what is not. Then came the colonial disruption. First with the Germans, they were the ones ruling Rwanda, Burundi, and Tanzania. Their ruling system was not disruptive in terms of, they were ruling through the king and the Batwari, the chiefs, and the royal council. So their colonial approach was different from the following one, which came from the Belgium in 1916. After the First World War, which Germany lost, they passed on their colony as protectorate to Belgium and to some other parts to Great Britain, and the others in some other areas like Cameroon to France. So in this case, the Belgians had a different approach. They introduced cash crops. So cash crops like coffee and tea were introduced in Rwanda, and then they were being farmed through forced labor. This is important because then the Belgians had to take some part of the population and use them as forced labor to be able to grow these crops. They also introduced schooling with minimal training for locals to be able to help them with their administrative work. And they selected the sons of the chiefs, the Batwaris, to help to attend these schools because they wanted to rule through them. To be able to identify who they were going to work with, they created ethnic identities. This is where they created the ethnicity of Tutsis, Hutus, and Twa. This also is fundamental in our history because before, a Tutsi, a Hutu, a Twa were social classes. They were not ethnicity because we all share one language, we all share the same traditions, there was intermarriages, so they were not ethnicity as per se. If you look at the definition of ethnicity or a tribe, these did not qualify. However, the Belgian system created a fixed identity, which they recorded. And the way you were a Tutsi is because you had a certain amount of cows, and you had land that you farm. A Hutu, in the terms of in Kinyarwanda, is somebody who helps. Is somebody who serves. So it's mostly somebody who was working under a chief or somebody with cows. So if a Tutsi loses his cows, he becomes a Hutu. If a Hutu gains cows, he becomes a Tutsi. So the cows were considered as the currency. So they became fixed, they were fluid. You could transition from a Tutsi to a Hutu or a Hutu to a Tutsi based on the amount of money that you had or based on weddings. If you marry the daughter of someone who had cows, which was money then, you become, on another social class, you become a Tutsi, etc. And the same applies, a Tutsi, if he goes bankrupt, he becomes a Hutu, etc. So it was fluid. What the Belgian colonialism did is they started recording people as Tutsis or Hutus, and they fixed this grouping instead of keeping them fluid and keeping them natural, not based on etc. And this was done to be able to select who was going to work with them and who was going to be pushed aside. So in 1950, when they initially took the sons of chiefs in their schools, in 1950 they reversed that policy and started bringing in those that they considered before as Hutus into the schooling, and also started giving them extra privileges versus the Tutsis. And this was based on a simple fact that the chiefs, the Batuares of before, started requesting for independence. They wanted to have Rwanda independent, to stop. They started fighting colonization. So this led to the Belgian colonial powers to shift their support to the Hutus, and then pushed to give independence. However, transmitting it with the division of grouping, which they had made now tribes or ethnicity, and then so they can have a much more friendlier independent power in Rwanda. So this led to the unrest in the country and led to the independence of Rwanda. So after that, Rwanda had two republics. Kayibanda was the first president of Rwanda. I think the second, but the first one was more during the period of unrest. And his policies were based on divisionism. So Kayibanda was considered as a Hutu, and he was part of the southern part of Rwanda. So when you start in any country, any discrimination, dividing different groups of people, you find yourself that that division will not stay there. It will go even a step further. In the case of Rwanda, Kayibanda started discriminating against those who were considered as Hutu, but from the north, including the next president, Habyarimana, who was from the north, and others similar Hutus considered from the north, who were pushed out of school into the army and discriminated against for jobs, for employment, for schooling, etc. Rwanda had different license license plates that were based on the province where you were from. So for instance, someone from Kigali, the capital, would have a license plate showing that he's from the capital. Somebody from the north would have a license plate showing that he's from the north. Somebody from the south would have a license plate showing that he's from the south, and specifically from this or that province. What this created is that on the roads of Kigali, the traffic police could stop a car based on the license plate. So this is fundamental to understand how a country can go from unity to complete division. If you get to the level where you now have cars with different with plates that are specifically showing the origin of the car and the people inside, you start now giving leeway for discrimination. You give an additional tool for discrimination. This led to the fact that before moving from one province to the other, though it was one country, though it was Rwanda, though it was a country of 26,000 square kilometers, someone had to apply for a sort of visa, a permission, to move from one province to the other. So when you were found driving in another province without that permission, you were arrested and asked, what are you doing in this province? So this shows you the tension and the different divisions that were ongoing in Rwanda. This was basically from the independence, 1959, all the way to the 80s. So this governance of discrimination was reaching all the administration. So kids going to school, for instance, they would ask them, whoever is a Tutsi, stand up, whoever is a Hutu, stand up, whoever is a Twa, stand up, etc. This was every semester, start of semester, just to have a check of who's who, and also remind those that were discriminated against that they did not have the same rights as others, which has been really a bad policy in the country. The next president in 1973 has a lot of the northern Hutus were pushed in the army. They had a dominance in the army. So they did a coup d'etat and removed President Kayibanda and President Habyarimana from the north, still a Hutu, took over. He continued the exclusion and the discrimination against the Tutsis. He took now the power to the north. So several of the leaders, be it in the government, be it leaders of institutions, were all from the north. Hutus from the south were now discriminated against also. They were excluded from institutions, they were excluded from leadership, etc. So in Rwanda, from this 1959 to 73, you had a division between all Tutsis were excluded, and then you had a division between Tutsis and Hutus. And also a division between Hutus from the south and Tutsis and Hutus from the north. Then when Habyarimana took over, the same applied between Hutus from the north and Hutus from the south, and still there was a continued discrimination against the Tutsis. These are fundamentals that led to what's going to be the catastrophic events, the tragedy of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsis. So all this discrimination of a part of the population, mostly Tutsis, created a whole exodus of Tutsis in the region. But it also included some Hutus who were considered part of the king's advisory council. Remember the Abiru? So some of them were considered Hutu, and then they also had to flee the country because they were considered as people who were part of who wanted to bring back the king. So all of a sudden, you find in the region we had several Tutsis that were refugees, and they've spent close to 30 years in exile. And exile in the region was meant that you had your children, yourself had to go in exile. It was hard to get a job because you were considered as a foreigner. Some went to exile in Uganda, others in DRC Congo, others in Tanzania. But in all these countries, they were not considered as citizens. Not being a citizen meant that you couldn't have a job. You couldn't have land to farm. You couldn't get your children to school. So you had a population that was in the region being completely frustrated without any other occupation. With the Southern Liberation War, we're talking about Zimbabwe, Zambia, Mozambique, and other countries that were trying to free themselves from apartheid. They started recruiting other Africans to help them with their war. This also applies to Uganda, which was next to Rwanda. So you now had this population of refugees that were roaming in the region, some enlisted in liberation war in Frelimo, in Mozambique, others in Zambia and Zimbabwe, others in the fight against Obote first, and then Idi Amin in Uganda. So you have a population of Rwandans, refugees, who flee in the region, but now who are joining liberation armies, some in the south, some in Uganda, some in militaries, organization in the region. With the slowdown with the Cold War ending, a lot of countries started going into economic crisis. DRC, Burundi, Tanzania even, Uganda. So all these refugees now found themselves into poverty, being excluded of schools, etc. And they decided to negotiate with Rwanda their return. There was a short attempt of return military in the 1960s, which had radicalized even stronger the Kigali regime against the return of these refugees, mostly Tutsis. That was in the 60s. And then in 1990, with the situation of Rwanda not being able to enlist in school, some of them having been part into military forces in the liberation of countries against apartheid, some of them having participated to the liberation of Uganda against Idi Amin, decided to form a movement, a military movement called the RPF, which launched an attack in 1990 in Rwanda. So what does discrimination means or dehumanization? These are a way to remove the privilege of a citizen in a nation. So first they would have derogatory names. They would call them cockroaches. They would call them, Ingotanyi was a derogative name, though in the past it wasn't, but it became one that became negative, referring to them as enemies. The then regime of Rwanda, of Habyarimana, created a hate radio, which day in, day out would have songs, would have derogatory nomination to the population, telling them that these are your enemies, etc. This is in the context of the 1990 attack of the RPF. And the attack it was not a full-scale war. It was more an intervention, a military intervention, which was to lead to negotiation. And these at several times happened, but unfortunately were not, the decisions were not implemented. So this is also very important to see how systematically from 59 to 1990, this dehumanization was done in schools where they would have Tutsi standing and reminded that they were not allowed to have A, B, C, D in the country, be it a student, be it at the workforce, etc. And then Rwanda also has set up national IDs where you would be recognized as a Tutsi, a Hutu, or etc. And based on that national ID, you had privileges or non-privileges. And this was official in the administration. In 1990, after the attack of the RPF, this escalated now to a full-scale campaign on radio, on newspaper, etc. So basically, they're now preparing to kill a part of the population. And to achieve that, there was a systematic formation of militias. This is very important because you see the same trend happening now in the region, specifically in DRC, where you take civilians and you form them in militias, and you show them that their target is a specific group of the population. So this goes with youth recruitment. You have some semi-paramilitary training, mainly with quick ways of killing using not guns but machetes, knives, etc. Basically abusing the population. They're not trained for warfare. They're trained for just hurting or harassing the population. And of course the ideology that we talked about, the dehumanization, who is the target, how does the target look like, where are they now, is this family or that family in that specific area, this or that target, is it a friend or a foe? So that's where you come for forced participation. So even in Rwanda, when there was a mobilization of militias, they wanted to know who is with them, basically ready to kill the neighbor, who's considered a Tutsi, or who is against them, who is not ready to kill them, even though they might feel that they come from the same group. But as long as you do not kill, you're not part of the militia, you were killed also. And several Hutus actually were killed during the genocide because they were just considered not participating to the killings. And these grouping had different names. In Rwanda, they were called Interahamwe and Imuza Migambi, which were basically groupings of young recruited, and they had privileges. They had buses, they were fed by the government, they were giving money, they were giving clothing, advantages compared to the other youth, just to ensure that they participate in these killings. So we moved from a country that is no longer focusing on development, is no longer focusing on education, on health, on infrastructure. It's now focusing basically on identifying those that they call the enemy, on training youth to identify them as well, and then preparing them to do killings. And this is what led to the 1994 genocide. And I invite you to fully understand the first part, because this first part is what created the foundation on how a neighbor can kill his neighbor. How a dad who's considered a Hutu can kill his wife who's considered a Tutsi, or her husband who's considered a Tutsi, just based on this propaganda that we talked about before. Though they speak the same language, though they have the same tradition, though they are from the same nation, but basically by hate that is created based on discrimination, on dehumanization, etc. This led to the killing of 1 million people, Tutsis, in 90 days, in 3 months. 1 million people in 3 months. It means that those who participated in genocide are at least 2 or 3 times this number. So this is really showcasing how bad this human tragedy was in 1994. For most scholars, the 1994 genocide against the Tutsis is one of the worst, if not the worst, human tragedy of the 20th century. It created 2 million refugees. So basically the entire country was out of you lose 1 million, you have over 2 million refugees, the entire country is out, not counting those who are already outside. This is an important number, but it shows you that all professionals were mostly killed at that time. So the reason why this number is important of lawyers is because once the country gets back together, how do you do justice when you barely have professionals in the judicial system? But we'll come back to that as well at a later stage. Of course, the GDP completely collapsed. I've put a decent number of 40%, but I think 100% of the GDP was gone because Rwanda did no longer produce agriculture, which was the main revenue, coffee and tea. Rwanda lost all the little taxes it was collecting then. So basically the GDP was close to zero. We had an inflation rate of close to 60%. And this is year to year. So it's not, it's cumulative. You had an education system. Once you have a genocide in a country, all schools are gone. Of course the teachers are gone. Some died, some ran away, some are wounded. So the school system is gone. All schools are destroyed in terms of infrastructure, in terms of etc. Teachers are killed. There's no material for education, books, and all that. The healthcare system collapsed completely. You go to a hospital, you don't have any, you can't have any care, you can't have anyone to support you once you arrive. The judicial system completely gone. So you basically had a country where you had corpses all over the place. This is also important because I'll come back to that in some of the changes that happened after the genocide, where Rwanda became one of the cleanest countries in the world. But basically at that time, at that point where you had people who were killed, and in 3 months, there's no time to bury, there was corpses all over the place. Sorry for the gruesome picture, but it's important to understand the context. So how did Rwanda recover from that? And this is more important. I wanted to share the background because that's what really led to the 1994 genocide against the Tutsis. But how do you recover from that situation? We still ourselves believe that it's a miracle. So there was two judicial systems that were put in place. The first one was done by the international organization, the international community. It tried about 93 high-level cases. Basically, it covered all the organizers and leaders during the genocide. It costed 1.3 billion investment, and it was important, though very inefficient, to trial only 97 people, where you had almost close to 2 million people who participated in the genocide. You only try 97 people, and then you use 1.3 billion. So it was very inefficient, but it was a good system because it put out there what really happened in Rwanda. Who were the organizers? How did they do it? Why did they do it? And how it happened. It therefore was very important because it helped to share with the world the tragedy that Rwanda went through. In Rwanda, with this challenge of having a shortage of professional judicial staff, we used the old kingdom time Gacaca court, selecting elder people who were known for integrity in the community, where all the entire community agree on their integrity. Those were the ones who became the jury. And all these people who participated in the genocide were put in front of the local community elders because they knew who participated, who did not, and at what level. If they participated as leaders, or if they participated as just contributors, or if they participated as recruiters, etc. This helped Rwanda establish a fair system to identify all those who participated in the genocide and at what level, and all those to a certain degree who participated either in the decision making, in the organization, in the recruitment, etc. All of them were put in prison. And we also set up a national unity reconciliation. We set up a unity and reconciliation council, which focused on ensuring that we rebuild the Rwandan nation. This also was very important. It came with different programs. There's a program right now called Ndi Umunyarwanda. Usually when you ask a Rwandan if he's a Tutsi, a Hutu, etc., usually they will just tell you, I'm a Rwandan. This is a program that started, but it had been initiated after the shock of the 1994 genocide. Few people were still going into these debates of which ethnicity are you, because there were so many deaths that it was a shock, a trauma. So this program enabled most of Rwandans today to identify themselves as individuals and not as Rwandans, not as Tutsi, Hutu, etc. So we have different measures that we use to ensure that this program is working, because it's a fundamental for our development, it's a fundamental for our unity, it's a fundamental of our safety. And we also put in place something very, very important, which is having memorial sites, where one, for the victims of the genocide, it's a way to honor their loss. For those who perpetrated the genocide, it's a way to remind them never to do it again. And these memorial sites are all over the country. There's a few that I've listed here that are usually, that are big and are usually visited. There's a Kigali Genocide Memorial. There's a Murambi in Yamata. There's another one in Yamata and Harama. That were, there's Murambi, I believe it's in the south, and then Bisesero, which is in the west. So these are big sites, but however, you have a lot of small sites in different areas. Rwanda has 30 districts, so if you have 300 plus, it means that at least a district has over 10 memorial sites. And this is for memory, preserving the memory of those that were lost, but also reminding those who perpetrated the genocide that they've caused a tragedy, and also the new generation not to do this, not to go through this path again. Good governance. How do you rebuild a nation after it has gone through such tragedy? It has been divided into different groups, Tutsis, Hutus, Twas. It even went further, Hutus from the south, Hutus from the north, because discrimination has no limits. When you give privilege to a group, that group becomes smaller, little by little. So the first approach was to dismantle all discriminatory system. Rwanda promoted meritocracy. First, our ID cards, there's no mention of Tutsi, Hutus, etc. There's no mention of where your parents are from, what districts you grew up in, etc. It's more of being a Rwandan. There's no longer a need for you to have a special permission to go in any provinces. The state is open to everyone from everywhere. Actually, Rwanda has even now made it a visa-free for all Africans, and we even went a step further. Any global citizen can go to Rwanda and have his visa at the airport. So all these limitations in terms of who was allowed to go to school, who was admitted for certain services, now Rwanda nationwide have all access to the same services, and there's a strong meritocracy system where you are given what you deserve, what you worked for, aside of the normal services that you have. We have accountability platform. There's a Mushikirano, which is a national dialogue. Every year in December, the citizen get together with the parliamentarian, the Senate, the executives, which is the president, the ministers, us, the people in the administration. So you have the judicial as well. We are all in one national dialogue where any citizen can raise any question, any issue that they have. And this is on social media. You can raise your issue on X, you can raise your issue on Instagram, on WhatsApp, on email, etc. So this has created accountability for all leadership level to ensure that no one is left behind with some level of injustice that is not addressed. This is very, very important because it created a trust into the system. Once your entire citizen trusts the system, then they work naturally as hard as they can to ensure that the country is propelled forward. We had to put this system in place because of all the background that I've shared before. So Umwiherero is a government retreat. The government retreat is mostly for the government to take stock of what has been done, what's still left to be done, and address all the challenges that there is. This is like a review of the government performance. All of us in the government, ourselves in the embassy, but also in the administration in the country, we have performance contract. Every year you have to report back what you committed to do and what you've done, if there were challenges, etc. It helps everyone perform, but it also helps address challenges that are met. Then we have Imigo, which is the performance contract that I've just mentioned. So it helps the country to keep on moving forward and performing. Of course, all this is in a framework of anti-corruption. Because once you have corruption, then you start having privileges for a few. Then the value of the income of the country is no longer there. You don't have value for money. Rwanda is today listed as the second least corrupt country, alongside with Botswana. So we are one of the fastest developing country in the world because of this performance of accountability, nation unity, but also review of performances and removal of challenges. So the economy, as mentioned before, the GDP in 1994 completely collapsed. So everything had to be rebuilt. If you look at 1994, Rwanda was at 752 million GDP, and this included aid from the former colony Belgium. So 80% of these funds were coming as aid directly from Belgium. Belgium was paying salaries of staff, they were paying different services, purchasing of cars, the budgets of ministries, etc., which is what is another form of continued colonialism. For those who are studying African studies, I really invite you to understand what was the situation of the country before the colonial time, during the colonial time, and after the colonial time. This is a fundamental. Because when you look at this GDP, you think that we're producing much and exporting much, but in reality, this is close to probably 2 to 5 million. The rest was provided by Belgium. Today, Rwanda is at a GDP of 13.3 billion, which is generated at 80%, based on the country revenues, taxation system. Actually, our Rwanda revenue system is one of the most efficient in Africa, thanks to the Korean revenue system. We are using the same platform. So, a similar platform, not the same, but similar platform. Yeah. So, poverty reduction in 1994, 77% of the population was considered poor. Today, we are at 45% of the population, which is a drastic reduction. And even these 45% that are considered poor, they're considered poor in terms of the access of funds, not in terms of their living conditions. Because Rwanda has a universal healthcare system where 97% of the population have healthcare. So you can go to a hospital and get cured. You can go to the district center and get some food. You are supported with food. Yeah. So education, you see the numbers. I will not read everything, but you can see that in 1994 we had 600 schools that were destroyed for most, and today we had 4,842 schools. Of course, you have to remember that Rwanda is a small country. It's not as big as Korea. Korea is 3 times bigger with a population of 5 times more. Healthcare centers, but if you want to see the development of Rwanda today, you have to compare. Healthcare centers in 94 we had 186. Today we have over 1,000. We have 57 major hospitals. We have referral hospitals with international intervention. I think Dr. Park is just from Kigali. He visited a few. And the road network in Rwanda is one of the best on the continent. You can research that on Google. I've checked myself. And it went from a basic 40 kilometers of road to 4,671 roads today. So times 100, times 1,000, basically. Electricity access, today Rwanda has 64% access, which is one of the highest on the continent. It means that you can go in any villages, you'll have houses with powers and access to water, etc. Rwanda export has increased a lot. We have tea. In 94, it was about 17.5% million. Today it's 10 times more. The same with coffee and horticulture. We are exporting a lot of fruits, flowers, etc. Some are coming all the way to Korea, but mostly to UAE and Europe. So Rwanda went through a structural transformation. We took technology and innovation as a driver for development. So you see a lot of cutting edge technologies in Rwanda. Rwanda was the first country with the deployment of 4G, which was done by Korea Telecom, in partnership with Korea Telecom. And we also have different innovation. Rwanda is one of the first places in the world where drones were used for delivery. Zipline, a US-based company, did not have the funding and the licenses to be able to do delivery of drones until they came to Rwanda, where they had access to funds, access to the license, and they successfully been deploying health, urgent medicine, blood, etc. To different locations remotely. Rwanda is very hilly, so the drones are able to, in a few minutes, to bring blood to a health center, to bring urgent medicine, to bring secondary opinion from referral hospital back to the health centers. BioNTech, it's a German-based company that has moved to Africa, that has put their vaccine manufacturing in Rwanda. And we basically created an innovation ecosystem where Rwanda would give you all the required authorization within the right framework to be able to start your piloting, your research. That's how you see the coming of the first air flight taxi, autonomous air flight taxi that just started last week. It was launched last week during the aviation summit. These taxis are also available in Dubai and of course in China as well. So you will see a lot of innovation that are driving Rwanda's development. Of course, we have a youthful population. We are pushing for higher education transformation. We are pushing for the adoption of international school standards. There's a few that are IB schools, comparable to SFS schools, Chadwick or Dwight or any other program. We are also adopting more and more the Singaporean and Korean math and science curriculum to ensure that we have students that are at par with other leading countries such as Korea. So Rwanda is today the second financial hub on the continent. So you move from a country in '94 that was in complete chaos. Now today we are one of the most trusted capital to invest your funds in. Africa is the new frontier. It's not the next frontier, but the new frontier. You have 1.4 billion population. The markets are looking for products, for services. It's a good place to do startups. And Rwanda has been hosting several funds, up to 3.2 billion already in 5 years. And we are considered the second on the continent. And this is growing. I'll share the presentation so you'll be able to read more. And this is based on strong institution. Rwanda has put forth in its development path credibility as one of the important pillars. Be it in medicine, Rwanda has now a maturity 3 level FDA approval in the world. So we're able to have credibility in terms of food, medicine, etc., enabling export, enabling local production. And in the financial center is the same. We have a central bank that has transparent numbers that is published. All our banking system is based on international standards. So this gives credibility for people to invest and use Rwanda to deposit their money. One of Rwanda's strengths is tourism, MICE, and we are one of the leading destinations for gorillas. Rwanda is not pushing for mass tourism, given the size of the country. We are looking for more of an elite tourism, but we give a unique experience. The reason is simple. Mass tourism can have an impact in our ecosystem, which is very fragile. So you have 4 major parks. There's the Volcano Park, which is a mountainous jungle where the gorillas are. We have the highest number of gorillas globally. And then they went from 40 to over 1,000 today. So they're growing every day. There's a national Nyungwe Park, which has a unique ecosystem, including primate species, butterflies, etc. Because it's a deep jungle compared to the Amazonie in South America. Of course, the African typical tradition of safari with the 5 big ones, the lions, leopard, cheetah, elephant, rhinoceros, and of course hippopotamus and others. And then there's another forest, which is an interesting one, which is a mix of hills, forests, but not as thick as the Nyungwe forest, which has brought a different ecosystem, especially of birds and others. So I'll let you go through it. Mining, Rwanda is on the same geological rock as DRC, Zambia, Angola, Burundi, Tanzania. So we have similar minerals. What is special with Rwanda is we move from just mining and artisanal mining to professional mining and to value add. I really invite you to look at the importance of value add, because once you have value added services, be it a refinery of gold, a refinery of tantalum refinery, tin smelter, all these show that you can export not the raw material, but the value added to it and generate more income. This is done with international standards, with traceability of minerals, etc. So the more you see what Rwanda is doing, is positioning itself not only to generate revenue for itself, but also to be a contributor to the global markets. This is important. You'll understand why there is, as part of the recent agreement in Washington with the brokered by the US, Rwanda is considered as a destination for value add of minerals. So we're looking at the vision upcoming 2035. That's the immediate one. We're looking at a GDP of $4,000 per capita, with a poverty reduction to 15%, moving from 45. And this is we are on target for most of the goals that are to achieve it. We're looking at universal services to be offered. And when we talk about that, we're talking about electricity, water, of course, healthcare, and all the basic government services, which are all going online. They're being digitalized to make them quick, but also to make them transparent and ensure that everyone has the right service. We're moving towards industrialization. We want to bring in more made in Rwanda products, ensuring that we have manufacturing, that we have especially high-end manufacturing, vaccines, chips, etc., medicine, etc. So there's a couple of things that we're working on strategically. There's an airport being built. It's going to be one of the major hubs on the continent. Rwanda is known for professional and good services. So we are building, in partnership with Qatar, an international airport, which will have 7 million passengers per year on phase 1, and immediately phase 2, leading it to 14 million passengers per year. This is important because we see the population that we're talking about, 1.4 billion, close to the population of India or China today, having to travel in each different countries, and we see Rwanda playing a strategic role. We are building a railroad network to be able to bring goods at a lower cost, and we also increasing our tourism. Next week, there is the first world cycling competition. It's going to be the first one. It's going to be in Rwanda. We've bidded for the Formula One races, which is also, we believe, we have a strong case to bring it to Rwanda. And we also just done with Kwitizina this year, the 20th, which is a ceremony held to name baby gorillas. Once you name baby gorillas, it's much easier to take care of them. And this is done by VVIPs and celebrities. We actually had a couple invited from Korea, but unfortunately they couldn't make it. But we had others that came from all over the world. From Korea, the CEO of the GGI is the one who represented the community from this side of the world. So 2050, Rwanda is looking at becoming a high-income country, basically achieving similarly what Korea went through from 1953 after post-war to where you are today. It's an aggressive timeline, but we believe that we're going to be able to do it thanks again to the fundamentals that we talked about. The unity of the country, the prosperity and working hard, but also and fundamentally the innovation and the partnership that we can create worldwide. So if you want to understand how Rwanda is transforming itself, there's a national document. Every transformational that we went through had a concept. This concept would give you the guidelines of the different transformations that we're looking at. Economic transformation, social transformation, governance transformation. These are the directive or the vectors that we follow to be able to ensure that on all those three verticals, we're able to achieve the country goals. So every person in the government is aligning his contribution, his work with this plan. This is a plan that is debated in the parliament, first discussed within the different administrative units, debated in the parliament, and then it's adopted at the national level. Once it's adopted at the national level, every year it's a review to ensure that it's on track with the achievement. And you will see that the achievements are very pragmatic, they're very concrete. Economic transformation has numbers. Social transformation has numbers. Governance transformation has numbers. It's not an ideology that is just built out of hope or wishes. And this is important because then your work can be measured based on clear targets, clear performance, and it's easy to go through a meritocratic, naturally leading to a meritocratic society. So if you look at the path that I've covered, Rwanda had to go through a recovery process first. Recovery, then we have Vision 2025, which is just 10 years away, and then we have Vision 2050. So from the recovery, we went to NST 2, which is now where we are. This is where we're leading, and this is where we're leading in the next few years. And these are the vectors that you can look and read to see and understand where the Rwanda development path. Yeah. So all these comes with with clear objectives, with clear numbers, so you're able to understand what policies are being pushed or enacted with the government. Just to list a few, the median age in Rwanda is 20 years old. We have a very young population. So this means that we're able to, with the right skills, with the right job creation, with the right entrepreneurship and innovation, with the right technology adoption and digital literacy, we're able to accelerate our development and achieve our goals in a short time. Also, this shows the fundamental of strategic partnership with institutions such as the Yonsei University, which we're talking today about the quantum computing, leveraging the quantum computing. We are talking with Professor Pang on how we can leverage your knowledge to come do research in Rwanda, to come do a semester in Rwanda, etc. These are strategic investment that you will see in this category. Africa is a 1.4 billion population. You'll see that most of African countries have the same median age, but most importantly, there was an agreement that was done, led by President Kagame, of the African Free Continental Trade Agreement. President Kagame's spirit was to say to its peers, leaders, why don't we create a market where there's no taxes for local production? So if you produce a product or a service in Rwanda, you can sell it in Uganda, in Nigeria, in Senegal, without taxes. And this was concerted at the AU level, African Union level, and it was adopted. Several leaders are now championing it. And we believe that it's going to be a game changer. Rwanda is one of the leading countries for that. And we have different incentives, regional incentives have been put in place to attract different initiatives to Rwanda for the continent. So not just for the Rwanda market, but for the continent. So now I'll end here and invite you all to visit Rwanda. Thank you so much.
작은 나라지만 아프리카에서 매우 중요한 역할을 하고 있는 어떤 대사님이 말씀하신 대로 개인 체계자가 될 수 있는 나라로 성장하고 있는 것 같아요. 특히 말씀하신 대로 1994 제노사이드 이후에 90일 동안 거의 100만 명이 에스닉 그룹의 컨플릭트로 해서 투투가 투지를 에게 미친 그런 제노사이드가 일어난 수많은 트라지스가 있었음에도 불구하고 지난 40년 동안 루안다가 코노미아 내가스기 수많은 일들을 극복하고 있게 발전해 나가고 미래를 펼쳐주는 나라에 대한 희망을 대사를 보여주신 거에 대해서 참 고맙게 생각을 합니다. 특히 저희들이 생각하는 게 있어서 루안다 제노사이드에 있는 이 사건을 저희들이 봤을 때는 한국에서도 배울 것들이 많은 게 저희들이 소위 프렌즈 앤 에너미라고 하는 제가 좀 아는 순간 결국에는 버프라고 해서 팔 스미처럼 하는 사람이 프렌즈 앤 에너미라는 얘기를 하면서 에너미를 죽일 수 있는 이유를 만들어냅니다. 왜냐면 에너미는 우리 내셔널 건축 사회의 프레트가 되기 때문에 쟤네들은 없어도 됩니다라고 하는 그런 메커니즘을 따져가지고 많은 일들이 우리나라에서 일어나는 것 같아요. 보수가 증거도 있고 성소수에 대한 선거 발언도 있고 수많은 것들이 있는 것에 대해서 우리가 루안다에서 일어나는 투투와 후투와의 사이의 제노사이드가 어떻게 일어나는 건지 저희가 아십니까? 여기에서 저희들과 해결되는 사실들이 있으면 신중하게도 저희들이 찾게 될 것 같습니다. 그런 의미에서 우리 대사님께서 말씀해 주신 이 프레젠테이션도 혹시 여러분들이 공부하신 것들에 대해서 질문하실 것 있으면 손 들고 질문해 주시면 감사하겠습니다.
루안다라는 나라에는 농업 자원도 많고 광물 자원도 많을 뿐더러 서비스 산업도 지금 계속해서 성장을 하고 있습니다. 경제학적으로 볼 때 루안다가 한국과의 무역에서 비교 우위를 가장 잘 발휘할 수 있는 분야는 무엇이라고 보십니까?
This is an excellent question. Actually, we first had we've been working with Korea to increase our innovation and technology sector, and that's how we partner with Korea Telecom to build the first 4G network nationwide in Rwanda. We're now pushing today in various sectors at the same time, including agriculture. We're trying to bring in coffee. Rwanda has some of the best coffees in the world. Tea, we have good organic green tea, regular tea, hibiscus tea. We're also bringing that. There's honey that we are also promoting. But in addition to that, we are looking at partnership into biotech, the semiconductor sector, mining. If you look at Korea today, the contribution of the entire African continent is 1.5%. Not just Rwanda, but the entire continent is 1.5% of the GDP. And this you include all countries. So overall, that's why the Korea-Africa Summit last year was critical. And I believe that the new government is going to follow the same path, is to increase the engagement with Korea. So I see all sectors, education, technology, mining, and biotech, definitely, innovation, all these growing in the next 1 year or two. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Your Excellency. I'm second year student in computer science at the university. First of all, thank you very much for the introduction. So in the NSC to Rwanda, as you have mentioned, I thought I wanted to go in these 5 years. What the goal in these 5 years is to develop 100 million coders in the countries and for 500,000 people who are professional in ICT skills. I thought this was a very impressive goal considering having 100 million coders in the country of like around 15 million population. I thought it was a very impressive goal. Can you please share the motivation behind placing such a big focus on information technology, as well as how is it being implemented in the country right now? driven by the private sector, public sector, etc. to achieve this mission?
Thank you very much. That's an excellent question. Rwanda has been able to accelerate its goals since 2000 using technology. So basically, we first created a national ID that helped us get access all the services, government services, public services easily with a public ID, which was linked to a database, and it was very hard to copy. So this was one of the first triggers that helped us ensure that you have good services for the population. So moving forward, when you talk about the NST2, it's the same spirit. So today we have AI, we have machine learning, robotics, drone technology, etc. And we have a very youthful population. Accelerating our development, we believe, is going to be much easier than what we've done before in terms of skill level, ensure that this youthful population has the right skills. Two, ensuring that we attract companies that are looking for skilled workers, that are looking for innovation, that are looking for, and that's how we build those targets. I can share an example. Rwanda has been able to attract the fourth industrial center for Africa in Kigali. It has been able to attract AIMS, which is a mathematical institute that is looking at machine learning, data crunching, etc. It has been able to attract the BioNTechs, the IRCAD. The IRCAD is a minimal invasive surgery institution. So all these are helped, pushed by technology. Today, technology is no longer about ICT, it's more about all sectors being enabled through technology. All these value-added units that we're talking about are also accelerated and improved by technology. So we really believe that it's a quick way of training people in a green way and also being able to attract some of these jobs that are not polluting, but at the same time contributing to the technology advancement.
First of all, thank you for your lecture. I know there are a lot of countries now that are still recovering from colonization or the hierarchical problems they've had in the past. And I think Rwanda is like a really outstanding example of how a country is able to improve so fast and so effectively. What do you think Rwanda had an advantage or like a differentiation in terms of political or like environmental differences against other countries or different other countries?
Rwanda started at a disadvantage because we had such a terrible policy during our colonial time and thereafter. So in 1994, it was a tragedy. I'm sorry again to build this picture, which is horrible. Just imagine neighbors killing neighbors. In a community where you have people that were just on the street because they were killed. So we came from such a terrible base in 94, and we were blessed with good leadership, meaning leadership that is now looking at national unity, two, looking at equal citizenship rights, and then three, rushing towards development, because poverty is one of the dangers of all these troubles that come nationwide. So I think we had advantages on, the one was a negative advantage in terms of where we were at the rock bottom. And then two, the second advantage was a very good leadership, a leadership that thinks for the nation, not thinking for a few individuals. And then we were lucky that we had all the fundamentals that were put in place. So today, if you go to any school in Rwanda, you will not hear anything that has to do with discrimination. And if someone performs well, they get the benefits that they're supposed to. I believe that those were the right drivers for us to move forward. Thank you.
키갈리를 제가 갔다 와서 우리 대사님께서 말씀하시는 그 제노사이드 메모리얼인데 제가 연세대학교를 대표해서 제노사이드 메모리얼에다가 루이스를 제가 올려놓고 연세대학교 대표해서. 근데 재밌는 것 중에 그래서 저희가 지난해 작년에 한아프리카 서밋이 있었는데 지금 대사님께서 말씀하시는 루안다의 대통령 폴 카가메 대통령이 한국에 오셨을 때 저희 연세대학에서 그 리더십을 존중하는 의미에서 저희 학교에서 명예 행정학 박사를 부리셨어요. 그래서 루안다 대통령이 면사대학교 동문이십니다. I'm talking about your president is our alum.
Yes.
So be nice to him, please. 그런 역사도 있기 때문에 저희가 루안다가 작은 나라지만은 또 우리나라가 작은 나라지만 작은 나라들끼리 한번 새로운 꿈을 꾸려고 하는 그런 노력도 지금 진행 중에 있다는 것도 여러분들이 말씀드리고 싶습니다.
주객세가 국제관이 2028년 중국 예정이라고 들었는데 공항 건설을 통해서 혹시 기대하시는 효과가 어떤 게 있으신가요?
This is exciting because one of the immediate outcome that I see happening is a direct flight from Seoul to Kigali. So you'll be able to travel to Kigali directly. But in terms of the nation, it's a service center. There's going to be a mall in there, so you'll be able to do your shopping while you're transitioning to Kigali. And we are already serving with Rwanda Air the different capitals on the continent. If you want to go to Lagos, to Senegal, you're able to go through Kigali, and then Rwanda Air will take you there. So one is the movement of passengers, which has a direct link with economy, innovation, because Rwanda wants to be a center. So being able to bring people in, take them out, is fundamental. But also cargo. So we'll be able to ship our goods out easier at lower cost, but also bring in goods from different places, including Korea. So for instance, Samsung phones are going to be much cheaper. We're going to bring plenty of them. And other products are similar.
루안다라는 나라가 주요인 탄자니아나 디아르콩고나 우간다나 케냐에 비해서 자원이 그렇게 넉넉하지는 않은 편입니다. 그렇기 때문에 어떤 때는 자원이 많기 때문에 어떤 때는 자원이 많은 것 자체가 컬스가 될 수가 있는데, 근데 루안다는 비교적 다른 데에 비해서 자원이 그렇게 많지는 않기 때문에 휴먼 캐피탈의 인베스트먼트를 만들고 서비스 섹터, IT 섹터, 파머시스터 섹터를 통해서 어떻게 보면 센트럴 아프리카의 중심에서 어떻게 보면 공항이 허브의 역할을 해서 레고스나 동서 남쪽으로 교통의 중심지로 만들려고 하는 꿈을 가지고 있습니다. 그래서 루안다는 자원이 적은 대신에 휴먼 캐피탈 디벨롭먼트에 아주 관심을 가지고 특히 ICT에 관심을 가지고 있기 때문에 어떻게 보면 자원이 없는 것이 펄스가 아니라 어떻게 보면은 휴먼 캐피탈 디벨롭먼트 할 수 있는 중요한 기회가 되는 것 같기도 합니다.
Thank you for your magnificent session about agriculture and history and in this industrial part of Rwanda. But I would like to ask you what's the official governmental opinion and your personal opinion about the fact that there still exists some political and systematical oppressions over population and distance in Rwanda.
Thank you for the question, and first of all, congratulations for your French. You speak very well French. It's simple. I shared earlier a slide where I was saying that Rwanda has a national dialogue every December. It's coming soon. Welcome. Maybe you'll greet our first counselor, Mr. Ganza, who's here. So in December, we can share with you the date where you can even call yourself and ask a question. So it's an open dialogue. If anyone has any issue about anything, you're welcome to say it. If you've been mistreated or you have a challenge, you're welcome to say it. That's one. Be it in Rwanda or outside. So even yourself can ask a question from here. That's one. Two, we have an ombudsman. You'll see it in the slide. I hope they will be shared with you. There's an ombudsman who takes all complaints, and these are published. They're online. There's no system of stopping it. You publish it, you send it, it's published. Me, citizen, have an issue with, etc. But what I would like to invite you to do, that's at the personal level, is to read now some of these opposition. What are the objectives? There's a difference between being in the opposition and trying to disrupt the development path of a country. But for instance, if the country trying to reminiscence, to bring back all the past that I've had a painful time to share, saying this is a Hutu, this is a Tutsi, etc., those are things that Rwanda has moved beyond. Unless there's a usefulness of it, bringing it back is only going to tear up the social fabric that is already existing. So those are things that you are first asked to explain. So there's a certain level of opportunism of some of this opposition that needs to be studied by people who are fair, not people who are trying to instigate more trouble, more issues. So I understand the question. I understand the claims of some of the people. For instance, if someone comes to Korea and say, hey, I'm an opposition, how can I get refugee status? I have to tell a story. So you have that happening all over the place with people who are trying to get some level of recognition, people who are fleeing from the judicial system, etc. But if there's a merit to any claim, then it should be done in the open and be linked to national interests. I'm not sure if I was able to answer your question.
So thank you for the session. And also during the lecture, it was mentioned that Rwanda is one of the most advanced countries in terms of gender equality, and that was a point that I was very impressed while I was doing the study a few years ago. And I want to ask, what makes it so special? What makes Rwanda so preceded in terms of the gender equality? Other than traditional or conventional factors you mentioned during your lecture. So whether it be any other legal or institutional effort or approach Rwanda is taking to improve or maintain the gender equality in students?
Yes, that's an excellent question. As mentioned, the Rwandan kingdom was among the advisor. Every king was intronized with his mother. So it was a couple being intronized, but a couple, sorry for the bad image, but the mother of the king was part of the decision making in the kingdom for balanced decision and inclusion of gender. So this translated that all the Batwares, the chiefs in provinces, the governors, had to do the same. Their mother was an advisor. So traditional, and when you go even lower in the family, the mother had a key role in driving the family prosperity. In our culture, that's how it is. And it's also the culture in several African countries. So this this was lost during the colonial time, and then also the First and the Second Republic. It was brought back and is institutionalized. So Rwanda started in saying 30% of the leadership has to be women. It became a law. In companies, in leadership, in the administration, in the judicial, etc. So that law, however, because it was falling on a fertile soil, which was fertilized by the tradition, automatically brought back the role of women in all decision making. We really believe that it brings up some level of balance. And in addition, there was a circumstantial due to the genocide where several women were more in numbers than men. Today, I think it's a little bit more balanced, but the women are still the majority. So all this led slowly through elections, through other processes, that women are playing a majority role in leadership in Rwanda. Yeah.
제가 코멘트를 드리면은 제가 작년에 학교에 출장으로 피가를 가서 Prime Minister's Office, Ministry of Education, Ministry of Health, ICT 여러 분들 가운데 그 리더십 중에 거의 반이 여성들이더라고요. 그래서 제가 한국이 멀었구나, 한국이 따라갈 일이 멀구나라는 생각을 해봤는데 지금 말씀하신 대로 제노사이드 이후에 여성의 숫자가 상당히 많고 전통적인 트래디셔널 소사이티에서 여성의 롤이 강한 것이 현대 사회에도 잘 적용되는 것 같습니다. 아마 계속적으로 발전이 될 것으로 저는 생각합니다.
Hi, so thank you so much for this insightful lecture. I'm studying international commerce and I'm a sophomore. So I've heard in the past that 1994, as well as the 1994 genocide in Rwanda is often described as a failure of the international community and the United Nations to uphold their responsibility to protect the civilians and maintain peace worldwide. And it was even part of the reason why the UN also created the responsibility to protect or Argentina in the first place. So from Rwanda's perspective, what were the most decisive factors behind the failure of the international community to intervene in the genocide? And what do you think, how would you interpret the consequences today? And what were the key reasons for the failure?
Thank you for the question. I think it's, there are several factors that in 1994, the UN had a force in Kigali. They could have intervened strongly to at least, if not stop the genocide completely, save more people. Because we believe that that should have been their role. Why it did not happen? There are several factors that are quite complex. And as Professor Pang mentioned, I'm not a political science major, so I will not risk myself into that path. But what I can say is, what is fundamental for our nation today, you'll see that Rwanda is one of the largest contributors to the peacekeeping forces in the UN, and Rwanda keeps peace. Rwanda does not just observe, we keep peace. We ensure that if we say we are contributing to a peace formation, our forces will intervene if there's abuse of civilians. That has been the case in the Darfur area, in South Sudan. It has been the case in our intervention in the Central African Republic, and also in our bilateral defense agreement with some of the countries that where we were invited to intervene. So we live in a complex world, and we can only invite the international community to observe more what is happening in the region, for instance, and ensure that they intervene when there's abuse of communities. But we are very sensitive to human rights. We are very sensitive to ensure that genocide does not happen again. But your question is very good, and I'm going to show that I'll give you a reference in the government to someone who can respond to it better than I can do. Thank you.
So in the presentation, you mentioned that Rwanda had a very drastic drop in poverty rates from 77% to 45%. What are some policies that Rwanda used in order to have such a great decrease in poverty? And in addition to that, the current poverty rate is about 45%, and providing healthcare, food, and water to all that 45% must be very difficult for the government. So what are some policies that the government uses on that part?
Very interesting. We have we've been emulating a lot of the policies that started in Asia, where the nation is serving the community, not just individuals. So for instance, us who are working, our taxes have been increased of a small percentage, so we can cover those who are not able to pay. Today, the healthcare system in Rwanda is one of the best in the region. We even have healthcare tourism, people coming, visiting the country, but also doing a checkup, and also following up on some of the chronic diseases that they have. Because we believe that healthcare is one of the fundamental human rights that should be provided. So in terms of funding, it's an increase of percentage. So for instance, when I pay my salary, I pay my healthcare contribution, but also I pay a small percentage to contribute for those who cannot pay. So that's how we've been able to structure it.
Yes, my name is Nkubito. I'm exchange with Marcos College. One, thank you for your presentation. Very informative, very insightful, and honestly inspiring. My question for you, one of them at least, is how do you all discern who can invest into Rwanda? Not all money is good money, and not all ideas is a great idea. And specifically thinking about Rebirth and Burkina Faso, who recently declined the help of Bill Gates on mosquitoes and malaria, genetic modifications, and other things like that. How do you all discern who to accept support from versus not?
Well, excellent question. So Rwanda decided to have an investment framework. And anyone here can open a business in Rwanda today, in a few hours. You just fill a form, you say what you want to do, what you want to work on, which sector, and then you launch your business. You're able to open a company account, etc. So how do we filter out? There's two paths. There's a path where you want to contribute to the direct development of the country. Let's say that one of our targets is employment in technology. And you bring in a company that is going to create 200 jobs in the technology sector. You are on the priorities list, you're going to be accelerated. But if you want to work, let's say, on something that does not have direct link that the government sees, you're able to open your business, have your capital, open your bank account, find investors, and do your business. So Rwanda believes in being a place where anyone can start an initiative and move forward. In terms of regulation, there are different agencies. For the Food, Drugs and Administration, for instance, we have an FDA agency which looks at what the initiative is all about. How does it fit with the standards of the country? How does it fit with the international standards? And then make a decision on the proposal that has been forwarded. However, we are cautious on ideological decisions. Basically saying, we like this, we like that, we don't like this one, we like this one. We try to find open and transparent criteria that drive to decision making. And the reason is simple. The more fair you are, given the discrimination we went through, all the trouble that we went through with being able to have people have their rights, we believe that it's better to have transparent criteria, clear rule and regulations, which might be wrong. You can contribute and say, hey, no, my proposal brings this as an advantage, and though there's this rule, I think I can still contribute. I'll share an example. Just last week, a company came and proposed flying taxis. So immediately, the Civil Aviation Authority looked at it. Which height are you going to fly on? What are the paths are going to use? How are you going to ask permission? And they had to work out all those things before the launch last week. Once all that is done, then you're able to start your business in whichever field you are. And Atlanta is a beautiful city. I've been there several times when I was working for Hewlett-Packard.
재밌는 게 뭐냐면 루안다가 저렇게 작죠. I'm talking about Rwanda is trying to become trying to become a Singapore, but I think Rwanda is trying to become like South Korea. I think he is trying so hard to be very close friendly relationship, more diplomatic trade relationship with South Korea. 우리 은구비토 대사님, 루안다에서 한국에 오신 은구비토 대사님께서 좋은 강연해 주신 거 감사하는 마음으로 박수를 한번 쳐주시고